What's up everybody, Richard here again in front of my same desk that I sit in every single time I do one of these videos. So I asked on Instagram last night, or maybe the night before, if anybody wanted to see my opinion on the AIRBNB IPO. So first things first, I am not a stock trader like a professional one or anything like that. I have a small stocks and shares portfolio, probably about £20,000 worth, and I mainly trade oil-based companies and banking. Like, that's pretty much it. I think just now I've only got PMO, Premier Oil, and Lloyd's. That's not me advising you to go and buy any of that. That's just what I've been doing. I've had success with over the last year. I'm probably between the two of them up about 30-35%, which is really good considering it's self-managed and I don't have a huge amount of experience. I'm good at, I guess you have to be good at this in property and anything really, is due diligence. I'm good at reading stuff up, finding out about businesses, and I think that's something that has led me to such success with, in percentage terms, with Premier Oil, because that allowed me to, I gave myself time to read into that in depth, understand the mergers that were coming up and their acquisitions, and why they were raising money and all that kind of stuff, and that let me get in at a pretty good time. So I thought I'd just give my opinion on the AIRBNB thing. Now, loads of people use AIRBNB, I use it all the time, loads of people watching this will be, and I think loads of people are using the fact that they use that a lot as a reason why they would invest in this IPO. So for those of you who don't know what AIRBNB is like a platform whereby hosts can offer property to people on like a short-term or service basis. So if you have a spare room in your house, you can rent out to someone for like who's coming to your city for a trip, or if you actually own, you know, multiple properties, you can list them there full-time as short-term lets. And users such as myself can go on and, you know, book a night's stay in someone's house or whatever, right? So if you're not sure what an IPO is an initial public offering. That's whereby the retail investor, someone like myself, a retail speculator I could call myself sometimes, it's whereby a retail investor can purchase shares in that company for the first time. So if you've ever watched The Wolf of Wall Street, you'll know about the whole Steve Madden IPO. Well, they were the company Stratton one that took Steve Madden to Wall Street. They were the ones that provided that initial public offering. AIRBNB is being noted under the ticker AIRBNB, and it's been listed on the NASDAQ because obviously it's across the water from us in the UK. So I'm going to go, I've done some reading into this, I've taken a lot of notes down just to give you an understanding of the financial situation of AIRBNB, what they're looking like during this whole COVID thing, and whether or not it's a buy for me at the end of this video. That's what I'm going to go into. So yeah, stay tuned. I'm going to go through this now. I'm not saying this is fact. Please do your own research. Please always do your own due diligence. I'm just giving my opinion. If anything, just use this video as some information to refer to, because I know a lot of people who are going to buy this off of speculation and not off of actual numbers and facts. So firstly, we need to think about similar companies and how similar companies have performed with their own IPOs. Now, I don't mean similar companies in terms of in the real estate and property world, but when you think about AIRBNB, they're basically a massive letting agent, right? They are the biggest providers of short-term lets in the world, and they don't own any properties. Well, that's wrong. They probably own the like offices and whatnot, but all the properties that are offered on their platform, it's not all owned by AIRBNB. They're a service provider. They're basically a really good middleman. So let's think of other businesses that are similar. We've got Uber. Is very similar. They're the largest provider of taxis, yet they don't own the cars. Everyone's on like a self-employed basis. You've got Lyft, who are similar to that as well. And both of those companies went public not all that long ago. So Uber went public in May of 2019 with an IPO share price of $45. Lyft went public in the March of 2019, and I think they were about $70, $75 per a share. I have got it written down my laptop, but I don't like going like this and looking all the time. So what happened to both of those shares? Now, Lyft is currently trading in the 30s. So the people that bought in on that IPO have already lost a large amount of money, and Uber have only just broken the IPO price. They kind of floundered for a little bit. They burst the ceiling on the IPO and then they fell for a while. Also probably because of the COVID-19 situation as well, but they're now only just starting to trade over their IPO. So the people who originally bought in and invested in Uber are only just starting to see a return on their investment now. That doesn't mean that Airbnb is going to be the exact same way. All I'm saying is it's good to refer to similar businesses and similar business models to see how their IPO has went and to understand their situation as a whole. And it's also good to look in comparison with those businesses because they are service providers of a same ilk to Airbnb, and they're going through the same global pandemic as everyone else. But if you bought Lyft on their IPO, I am fucking sorry. Maybe thinking, how do Airbnb actually make their money? So Airbnb obviously don't operate the units. It's not them, so they're not making anything from rental income. What they charge is a service fee on top of their booking. I remember reading about Airbnb and how hard it was for them to actually get off the ground. So it is cool to see them, so big now. It is very impressive, but that is really where they make their money, is their service fees. Originally it was just a spare room rental, and now they've went into all these different types of kind of lodgings, and it makes complete sense because they've given themselves an access to a bigger market. One of the good things about Airbnb is that they made it very easy for users to continue using it. You have an internal, review system whereby I can review hosts can review guests. They have an internal messaging system that we can, chat through there. And what they actually do, which is really cool, is when you go, they don't say tell XYZ host about your trip. They say tell them something about you, which is really cool, and it kind of creates a sense of community, almost, where like you're not just going there just to use a service, you're almost becoming friends with people. One of the original hosts I stayed with was someone in San Diego in California, a woman called Marie. Marie, if you're watching this, because I have her on Facebook and I still talk to her all the time, and my mum has her on Facebook, and she's almost became an extended family friend now. So that goes to show Airbnb's real drive to try and create that community as opposed to just the service. Let's look at some comparable companies in the same, that kind of property booking space. So one in the UK that we would commonly know and probably have used is TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor has a much smaller revenue than Airbnb, but what it does is has decent operating profits, I think it profits round about 10%, and when you're dealing with a couple of $100 million, that's like a really good profit margin. I think, although it's easy, and I'll get into this with Airbnb in a second, it's easy to take jabs at Airbnb because of their profitability. All of these kind of bookings companies have fell foul to the COVID-19 pandemic. That's just a fact. And going forward, that'll play a huge part in the profitability for shareholders in these companies. So I don't want, if anyone here is pure super Airbnb, I don't want people thinking like I'm hammering Airbnb. I'm just trying to be as diligent as possible, but I will also accept that all these other comparable companies like Expedia and stuff like that, or Hotel, Trivago, like all that kind of stuff, they've all been affected. So the IPO is going to be this December. They haven't released a share price yet, but I was looking on Shares Post, and Airbnb at the start of in Q1 of this year were sitting on just under a valuation of 31 billion. Now, after I'll get into the specifics of their Q2 and Q3, financial reports, but they've basically dropped to a valuation of 18 billion now. So at the last round of funding, they raised $1 billion at a share price of $52.50. I'll post this here. I'm just going to use Shares Post for this, and you can see that on there. So they raised at a valuation of 31 billion, $1 billion at $52.50 a share. Prior to that, the valuation was 25 billion, and let me just check exactly what was that price. That was $46 a share, and then prior to that, this is in 2014, it was a 519 million raise, a 10.5 billion valuation at $20 per share. Now, I don't really know how to speculate where this is going to be. In my understanding, I go, okay, well, if the value is 18, they raised at 10, and they raised at 25, or somewhere in the middle. 25, they raised at $40 odd a share. That one's at 20, yeah, it must be in the 30s, but I really don't know. Because they are such a big name, they might have scope to charge more on an IPO. Kind of like when you look at Lyft and Uber, like Lyft's price was so much higher, but in my opinion, more people use Uber. YouTuber, but I guess it's just dependent on the company. They kind of set it, don't they? So when we think about when the pandemic really hit, more so of the Western world, when we started seeing lockdowns and whatnot, well, we were just into Q2 of 2020. Now Q2 of 2019, Airbnb had a revenue of over $1 billion for Q2 of 2019. And Q2 of 2020, they're like 300 million, round about 350 million, which is absolutely crazy. That's a humongous drop. I think it's like 65% odd that they've dropped in terms of revenue. And I think that their total revenue for Q1 and Q2 put together is half of what they projected for this year. Now obviously COVID-19 has arguably hit Airbnb probably the fucking hardest out of any other company in that booking sector, and as we've seen, like I said previously, as you've seen on the shares post stuff, their valuation has been hugely affected by that. So I can't say that it's Airbnb's business model being badly. There was no real way to actually plan for this from Airbnb's perspective. In terms of profitability, there have been companies that have sold for large amounts of money that haven't been profitable. Pop Chips, for an example, Vitamin Water also sold and they were not yet profitable. They had quite high burn rates, but the branding was strong and it was a worthwhile investment for the PE funds that took them on. And when you look at Airbnb, you know what I'm going to say, they are not yet profitable, which is kinda fatal when we're looking at the situation of the world that we're in just now with the COVID-19 thing. The fact that they're not profitable is pretty scary. So Airbnb's revenue has always been pretty inconsistent, having looked at it. Now this is stuff that I've found out in the last couple of days. It's not like I've been looking over these guys for years. They showed in their EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization, they showed some positivity in 2018, and that created a little bit of, you know, fucking hype and hysteria, and people were like, yes, this is fucking awesome. But the revenues have been very inconsistent and they seem to not really have I feel so stupid saying this because they're running this massive company and I'm fucking sitting in a flat in Glasgow, but their sales and marketing seems very weird. So as of Q3 of this year, Airbnb had 2.6 billion in cash. Now that was higher than what they projected having. I imagine the reason they've done that is because of the instability in the marketplace due to COVID. They've been maybe not wanting to invest into any type of, you know, commercial holdings that they do, like office blocks or any expansion or massive ad campaigns, because you're talking hundreds of millions for these guys when it comes to like ads and stuff, not like running them on fucking Facebook ad manager. But I think that's why they've probably sat and tried to be as liquid as possible. But in Airbnb's case, it's hard for them to be liquid, and here's why. So Airbnb currently have short-term liabilities of 4.4 billion. If you're okay at maths, you understand that 4.4 billion is quite a lot more than 2.6 billion. Now most of you would be thinking, what the fuck, how are they not bust, whatever. Like, it's very complex, like beyond my understanding when it gets to degree as well. So companies can't operate with a burn rate, but this is why they raise money and they bring on investors to have more liquidity to go and, you know, build that company, build that brand, specifically with Airbnb and that community that I spoke about earlier. On top of that 4.4 billion, they also have just shy of 2 billion of long-term debt. So long-term debt would be considered more like what we would understand as a mortgage. For us, that's longer-term debt. So when you think of that, they're kind of in a position where they're over 6 billion in debt, and that's a net position as well. So it's a little bit scary, that, and shows, you know, the financial stability isn't really that great. And I think when I look at it, I don't think people get excited about IPOs because a lot of the time it's a sign of strength. I personally think Airbnb are doing this IPO because they fucking really need money. So they're a hot ticket in America. They've had, you know what, 5-6 rounds of funding from seed until now. They're on A, B, C, D, E, 6 rounds of funding. They've raised well over it, almost 2 billion. I think it's around 2 billion if I add up what I've read on Shares Post. So I think all the people who were interested in investing there at the price that they would consider, that ship has already sailed. Now you're always going to get private equity funds or VCs or whatever who are willing to put money into stuff, but they're probably going to want to stab your fucking eyes out. They're not going to pay the price that they would want you to pay, or Airbnb being they. So I think that private equity ship has sailed, unless they needed real distressed funding, as if they were going into administration or liquidation or whatever. If they were actually going down, then they would consider that, because it's a one or the other, they've got no choice. But companies' last port of call is generally the retail investor. Now, I still know a lot of people who have read all this same stuff and are super bullish on Airbnb and will buy a fuck ton of it, like probably over 100 grand, guys I know will buy that, and that's cool. But when I look at it, I think this is just a last ditch raise. Not a last ditch, it's not like they're on the last legs, but I think this is a raise that they really need. They're really hoping that people go super bullish on the shares or stock. What if you're American, you kind of say that more so, and I think that's what they're doing, because they've ran out of options to raise money at a value that they would deem fit, and there's enough people who will just hear Airbnb, hear the name, not look into any stuff, not watch a video like this, which to be honest isn't a huge amount of information. I'm just showing what I've read over the last couple of days, and people will just buy it because it's Airbnb. So, like I was saying about, you know, when like the lockdowns and all that first started happening, and I had to cancel some Airbnbs this year as well. In March alone, Airbnb faced over 4 million cancellations worldwide. And what that had was a huge impact on their sense of community and the community that they're trying to brand. Reason being was people still needed to travel. There was still people who needed to travel, and the only, not the only option, but the safer option when they were fearful because of this virus was to stay at hotels, or some companies such as like Barclays and whatnot in Glasgow operate service lets purely for their own employees and whatnot, so they were reverting back to stuff like that, or not travelling at all in some cases. So that sense of community, and that, like, you know, sometimes when I didn't have very much money, I would stay in people's spare rooms in the houses. I'd done it in Japan. I literally stayed in a family's spare room so that I could go over in Japan and train, and I was able to walk downstairs and talk to them and sit and speak with them and be friends with them. And same with Marie that I spoke about in America. That sense of community was amazing. That's been ripped away. And not that that's I guess a bit airy-fairy. I don't know how much that will affect the actual business, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, Airbnb have got rid of nearly 2,000 employees. That's a lot of people. Now, I actually haven't checked how many people they employ, so it might not be that much in the grand scheme of things, but that doesn't show confidence to me, and I guess it would be hard for them to be confident in this situation because they are pretty much up against it. A video that's just popped into my head that you should all go and watch because it's very relevant for this is there's a YouTube channel called Cold Fusion TV, and they done a video series on WeWork. WeWork are similar to Regus and Spaces, like serviced office providers. Now, WeWork once had a valuation of like 45 billion or 50 billion, something around that. It was a guy, Adam something, very weird company. It was hugely overvalued. It was backed massively by SoftBank's Vision Fund. They ploughed a huge amount of money into it. They had the IPO set out, ready to go, and the IPO failed. Today, they are worth 2.9 billion. Now, that's obviously not shit. I'm worth about 2.9 fucking £1,000, right? So in comparison to them, it's nothing. But that was all based on overvaluation, bad short-term debt, long-term debt added on top of that to create a large debt bubble, and a really poor corporate structure within the company. Now, I can't comment on Airbnb's corporate structure, but I'm not really that confident that Airbnb are exempt from the same fate as WeWork. Now, regardless of what Airbnb put the IPO out at, people are going to buy it. Funds will buy it, like people who do wealth management and all that will buy it in large quantities. Now, from looking at this kind of stuff and the stuff I've mentioned and a couple of the wee charts I've shown you and whatnot, like, I do think you will see Airbnb's share price drop. Now, it's not a hugely bad thing, because if you think about it, the guys that invested in Uber, they're now seeing their money come to fruition, and it's only been a year and a half. In investment terms, a year and a half is not a long time, but I do think we'll see the share price drop, and I think the fate of Airbnb is hugely hanging in the balance on how the world copes with the COVID-19 thing. I think the rolling out, and I don't want conspiracy theories in the comments, please. I have my own opinions, but I don't care, we'll just talk about Airbnb just now. I think the rolling out of a vaccine would, whether it works or not, would create huge user stimulation and massive confidence in that market space, which would allow Airbnb to rebound as a business, and also for the more sophisticated investor to, or sophisticated retail investor to step in and purchase that on some type of bull run that would probably be seen if that happened. And we're seeing more and more signs of the world starting to not normalise with COVID-19, but starting to recover slightly. So I do think that Airbnb's fate, in terms of just as a business, truly depends on how the world recovers from the COVID-19 situation and the user stimulation that's created henceforth from that point. So, am I going to buy Airbnb shares? I'm pretty sure you can guess it from here. I guess I've been a bit of a negative Nancy, but whatever. Absolutely not. I'm not going to buy them. I actually didn't even know that Airbnb's IPO was happening in this year until like 3 weeks ago. And I like to keep up to date with stuff like that. I have email notifications. I just find it interesting, even though I'm not a huge investor. I'm probably bigger than average, but I'm not a huge investor in this type of stuff. I was very surprised that I was told it through a message on Instagram from someone that I knew, like, oh, are you going to be buying this? And I was like, what? And that goes to show that maybe not that they've rushed getting this ready, but this is a real on a whim decision. They've been like, we need money, we need to get this out there. It's not going to be some type of campaign where we're putting all this fucking like hysteria and excitement into the marketplace. We're just going to put it out, and hopefully these larger funds and larger investors that are buying in are going to be able to give them a bit of a float. So now this video, like I said, is just my understanding of this. If you're a super experienced, financial advisor, wealth manager, I would absolutely, genuinely, on a personal level, I would love to hear your opinion, because there's probably a lot I can learn from your opinion. Like I say, I probably wouldn't even call myself an investor in stocks and shares. I would call myself a more intelligent than average speculator, and maybe even the amount of due diligence I try and do is too much sometimes. So this is not advice. I'm not saying you shouldn't go and buy Airbnb. You might be looking at this and going, Richard, I actually see X, Y, and Z. I'm going to buy it, and I think that you're wrong. That's awesome. There's always going to be bulls and bears. There's always going to be someone buying, someone selling. Like, that's totally fine. And I genuinely do like hearing other people's opinions, because I'm still only 24 years old. I'm constantly learning and constantly trying to improve my skill set and understanding in every single investment avenue. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I haven't ruined your plans to become super rich off of buying Airbnb shares, because you still might, I don't know. So yeah, let's see when this comes out. I'll be interested to see what it's getting sold at on the IPO, and when this month it's going to be launching, because I would feel like they would have had a date by now. We're on the 2nd or 2nd of December, so yeah, I'm interested to see. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. If you thought it was shit, give it a dislike. If you have any feedback, positive or negative, or differing opinions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and also subscribe if you'd like to keep up to date with my content. There's also a notification bell. I never talk about that because I doubt anyone fucking presses it. But yeah, I'll be back with another video in the next week or so. I'm not as regimented as before. I've been a little bit busy recently, but yeah, I hope you're enjoying the content this far. You'll also find my Instagrams and all that down in the video description. Have a good week, everybody, and let me know if you're buying or selling Airbnb. I just realised that I said if you're buying or selling Airbnb. This has just ruined my whole video. You can't fucking sell it yet, because you can't even fucking buy it. But let me know if you're going to be buying at the IPO, regardless of the price, or if price is dependent for you. I'd be interested to hear. Now that I've corrected myself, see you later.